welcome to this presentation. It's always my privilege to share with you ideas that I think are affecting how we work and how we progress forward as professionals. In this presentation, we are going to look at AI and how it is shaping both our personal and professional lives. I will also delve into how, as professionals and individuals, we can adapt and remain relevant and valuable. My name is George Kopio. Fundamental to this conversation is a question about what makes us different from the next person. And this question is vital because we are almost using the same tools. Our prompting skills could be a bit advanced or different, but we're almost using the same tools to produce work. So how are we differentiating ourselves from the next person? And that question is important because it determines the level of value beyond AI that each of us brings to environments where we operate and work. Allow me to ask you to take a moment to reflect on the transformation we are witnessing across industries vis-a-vis the AI tools that are already being deployed in the marketplace. First, AI is democratizing professional good output. What used to require years of training or hiring of specialists can now be done by individuals with just a basic understanding of the tools. Whether you're in marketing, finance, design, or development, AI is actually lowering the barrier to entry. And that means in terms of competition, in terms of how our organizations are set up, there's a lot of technology-driven barrier lowering through the use of artificial intelligence. Secondly, foundational models can now generate competent work in seconds. We are not talking about rough drafts or starting points anymore. Many outputs are polished enough to be used immediately with minimal prompting. This means that the speed and the volume of work have increased dramatically. And third, AI is also pushing up the baseline quality of work. The average ad copy, the code snippet that you get from artificial intelligence, or the design mockup that you can actually generate by prompting AI is no longer average. It is increasingly refined, insightful, market-ready, even from people who are not experts in particular fields. And finally, good enough is now good enough for everyone. We're in a world where high-quality content, computer code, design, analysis are no longer the domain of the elite. You can actually produce high-quality work at almost comparatively the lowest cost possible. AI has made this kind of output widely accessible to a large range of people. And this raises an important question about how we're going to define excellence, how we're going to differentiate ourselves, and what kind of skills will truly stand out in the age of artificial intelligence. Now, incremental improvements are also losing value. I would like to give you an example. For example, in graphic design, especially for those who work in the advertising industry, tools like Canva or Adobe Firefly can now allow designers to create professional visuals instantly. Traditional designers relied on experience and incremental skill to improve their work. And now, artificial intelligence is forcing designers to focus and reinvent themselves for higher value or higher level creative direction rather than just the execution and the generation of work. The other thing with artificial intelligence is that professional standards are being redefined. In journalism, for example, artificial generated reports are now being used by large organizations like Bloomberg and Associated Press. And automated news writing is now becoming the norm. What does that mean for the journalist sitting in a media house somewhere in Africa or in India or in Europe? Instead of just writing articles, Journalists must now focus on deeper work, investigative storytelling, critical analysis, and original reporting. In technology and in software development, and I'm sure a lot of some of you in the startup sector would be interested to hear this. We now have platforms where people without deep code writing knowledge can now generate functional code using simple prompts. Startups that once needed large development teams can now build minimum viable products with very few engineers. Yeah. And then one of the biggest dynamics in the use of AI, from where I sit, is that we are almost becoming the same. You see, for example, if different brands were to prompt ChatGPT for a certain ad copy, they would almost get similar words, similar nuances across different brands. Yeah. So such that companies must now differentiate through unique storytelling and brand personality and emotional engagement rather than just well-written text. It almost looks like we're becoming the same. If you look at, I'll give you another example. If you walk through a platform like LinkedIn, you will see that there's a certain style of writing, certain style of posting that resonates with people more. Yeah. And that style of posting comes from a certain tool that I would not like to mention in this particular presentation. And the use of that tool is widespread. Number one, because it allows readability. It allows people to skim through ideas, distills those ideas in very short notes that can be read on mobile fast devices. And it's become a hit with a lot of people have large followings on LinkedIn. And the more people use that particular tool, the more we're almost engaging in the same conversations or in the same conversation, but in different format. Okay. Artificial intelligence amplifies skills, but it also flattens competitive advantages. And I would like to draw an example from legal work, and I think any lawyers in the house would probably understand this, that we now have tools that are automating contract reviews, things like researching case law, which takes a lot of time in law firms, are now being done automatically through machines. But there's a thin line between just using machines to do case law research and producing higher value work. Okay, which means law firms can no longer charge premium rates just for research because the cost of research has been flattened. Anyone who wants to charge a premium rate, any lawyer who wants to charge a premium rate must offer deeper strategic counsel that machines will not provide. Okay. The future of AI isn't just about using AI. It's about using AI strategically. And I think the real winners will be those who go beyond automation to focus on creativity, problem solving, and unique insights. As I've said before, we're almost sounding and looking the same. Okay. As AI tools become more advanced and widely available, they enable people to produce high quality work. But there's a catch to all this. There's a downside. When everyone is using the same tools, generating similar outputs, then originality will suffer. And then that creates a new challenge. How do we stand out in the sea of competent but generic content? Okay. For example, let's go back to marketing. You can use ChatGPT to produce very professional but formulaic content. And that formulaic content ends up in making a lot of brands sound the same, leading to what people have now come to call content fatigue. In e-commerce, yeah, for those selling online, if all of us were to produce product descriptions for different brands using the same tool, we might end up with narrations that almost feel identical because they were generated by AI trained on similar data sets. And the challenge here for marketers, for example, is to think about how companies need to develop unique brand voices to stand out. Yeah. Let me also go back to the example I gave earlier about advertising agencies and marketing agencies and creative agencies. Um, if you take a tool like Adobe Firefly, you can make very high quality designs that are almost accessible to anyone. And that also means that the designs might also look alike. For example, if you look at a lot of startup pitch decks, you now get a feeling that they're now following a similar aesthetic, clean fonts, flat icons, layouts that almost feel templated, making it harder for any single presentation to stand out and leave a lasting impression for originality. Yeah. In software development, we are also confronting the same challenges. For example, with GitHub Copilot and similar AI coding assistants, many developers are producing similar and very optimized code structures. While this speeds up development, you can actually produce work quicker. It also removes the unique problem-solving approaches that once set developers apart. Okay, and you see this all the time. If you look at the wireframes that are used to develop apps, if you look at the different mega apps that are being developed by large organizations, you have this feeling that they're actually similar in many ways because a lot of them are generated by AI generated user interface components and code structures. And the key struggle is this: it is easy to create stuff, content, video, images using AI. But it brings to the core the issue of originality. The question is no longer about can you produce high quality work? Yes, everyone can produce high quality work now. But how do we now make whatever works that we produce distinct and memorable? Okay. And then as we become more of the same, as we become as we become as we suffer conformity, yeah, what are the consequences? What are the unintended consequences for careers and professional fulfillment? Let us explore a few challenges. When AI automates technical tasks, professionals may struggle to differentiate themselves. Let me just go back to the ready example that I've given before, and that is the example of graphic designers using AI generated templates will find it harder to showcase a unique creative edge. And from there, you almost get a feeling of like your career is not moving in a way that your work defines you in a very unique way. The other issue is there was a time that specialized skills commanded a very high price, and they were not very replicable. Those skills were not replicable. But the problem with AI is that because of the ease of producing quality work, there's a downward pressure on compensation. Okay. For example, people who write copy in advertising agencies, or even junior developers, people who write software for startups and for large companies, for example, are seeing the monies that they can get paid, the value that they can extract in terms of money. Those rates are dropping because AI tools are now able to generate decent content and in the shortest time possible. Okay. Then for a lot of professionals, there's also the increased vulnerability to replacement. And not just for low-end work, but for also very high-end work in places like medicine, where we've got AI doing very accurate diagnosis and lab work. Yeah. Those who simply use AI for efficiency risk being outpaced by professionals who creatively integrate AI within unique human strengths. Okay. In law firms, for example, junior associates performing document review are being somewhat replaced by AI-powered legal assistants, whose but those who can master AI on one hand, but offer very distinctive point of views in terms of dispute resolution, for example, in law, those will have an edge. Then we've got something else, and this is what we call creative frustration. When AI-driven standardization becomes the norm, professionals may feel boxed into predictable patterns. Okay? In the past, musicians wrote their own notes, filmmakers took a lot of time to write scripts, writing books, or developing a manuscript for a book was a painstaking process. But now, using AI-enhanced tools, you will find that they're producing quality work faster, but that quality work they're producing faster also resembles existing content, and thereby reducing opportunities. There's an economic cost to originality, such that we are almost producing, as I said before, we're almost producing work that looks the same, but we are communicating that work that looks the same in different typologies and in different formats and languages. Then there's the risk, and this is a risk that HR managers and organizations should think about: the diminishing professional satisfaction. As work becomes increasingly templated, many professionals will in good time feel disengaged, seeing their roles as rather repetitive rather than innovative. I would give an example. For example, if you work for an architectural firm and your architectural firm relies on AI generated blueprints and building plans, you may feel disconnected from the creative process, and that in turn reduces your job fulfillment. To create a building blueprint, a building plan without AI is a very intensive process. And a lot of professionals get satisfaction from the intensity of the work. So when there's no intensity in the things they do, then there's an element of diminished professionals' satisfaction. Then as AI tools become powerful, they're also fundamentally shaping how professionals perceive their value and career progression. There's the element of recognition as output becomes more of the same. When AI-generated content, designs, or codes follow similar patterns, individual contributions become very hard to distinguish. I'll give an example of writers using AI for content creation may struggle to gain recognition as their work resembles AI-generated summaries rather than content or writings that offer unique perspectives. Then we might also come to a place where professionals will begin having a crisis of identity. Okay. Many professionals define themselves by their specialized skills, But when AI can replicate those skills, they may question their value. And I would give an example again in the area of photography. Traditionally, photographers have been very intense, very art oriented. But when photographers begin using AI enhanced editing tools, they may feel less disconnected to their craft as automation takes over the tasks that once required very deep individual expertise. Okay. So, what is it that artificial intelligence can't replace about ourselves? Yeah? As AI continues to redefine professional work, one critical question emerges: what makes a human professional irreplaceable? Think about that. The answer lies in uniquely human quality that artificial intelligence cannot replicate. Of course, we don't. I cannot tell the end game of artificial intelligence. There are a lot of theories and questions as we move forward to perfect the machines, get more data sets for training. But so far, what we can tell is that there are things that AI at this point in time, cannot do. And those are the things that AI cannot replicate. For example, artificial intelligence cannot replicate your unique lived experiences. AI lacks personal experiences, cultural nuances, and first-hand insights that shape decision making. A journalist covering global affairs brings personal experience, historical awareness, and emotional nuance that an AI-generated report cannot match. If you're reporting about, for example, war in the Middle East, and you've got the context, you've got the history, you've got the personal experience, then you're able to articulate the situation better than probably an AI-generated report. Then the other thing that AI cannot replace yet is our creative intuition and pattern recognition. And this is built upon years of experience and instinct, and our problem-solving abilities that machines cannot replicate. For example, you could create art using artificial intelligence, but a seasoned artist can instantly spot something that either does not emotionally resonate in the design, while AI can only generate what is statistically possible, the data that actually has been fed into the machine. The other thing artificial intelligence cannot replace is our ability to form authentic human connections. For example, trust, empathy, deep personal relationships that drive business success. AI cannot replace that. I'll give another example in the area of diplomacy. For example, you can have diplomatic agreements, press releases done using artificial intelligence, using machines, but how you resolve and negotiate conflict cannot be done without trust, and that trust can only be developed and nurtured by human beings. Another example is in the area of sales. We can automate sales processes. We can use machines to run data about markets, about products. But a sales professional earns client loyalty through emotional connection and trust, something that AI or an AI-driven chatbot cannot probably genuinely provide. Then there's the issue of our emotional intelligence and cultural context. AI operates on logic and data, but human leadership thrives on understanding emotions and cultural dynamics. For example, if you're in an organization and you're trying to resolve conflict, um, an AI tool could give you the frameworks with which to do that, the methods with which to do that, but it takes the nuance of the human touch to navigate those emotions and office politics in a way that AI cannot do. Okay. Then there's the issue of risk taking. AI optimizes for probability and safety, while humans take leaps of faith to drive breakthroughs. You could, for example, run data. You want to start a business, empirical data and data that you've gathered, information that you've gathered from AI could tell you otherwise. But it takes the courage and our intellectual capacity for risk to move forward with things that we even think that we might not think could work. And entrepreneurs launching unconventional ideas is an example of this. If, for example, there's some startups, if you are to run their models on AI, AI will not allow you to move forward because data would inform such processes in a negative way. I insist that AI is a powerful tool, but human distinctiveness lies in our creativity, our relationships, and our ability to take risks. Yeah. So, in summary, the professionals who thrive in this era of artificial intelligence will be those who can leverage AI while doubling down on uniquely human strengths. You've had discussions about ethics and artificial intelligence, and I think that is also ethics, the ability to reason and to make judgment around ethics is a soft skill that it's an irreplaceable human strength that artificial intelligence, from my point of view, cannot replicate. Artificial intelligence follows patterns and probabilities, but ethical dilemmas require human judgment, values, and moral reasoning. In areas like medicine, AI can recommend treatment, but a doctor must consider the patient's values, circumstances, and ethical implications. And you've seen that even where we have artificial intelligence doing very, very accurate diagnostic work, we still need the oversight of a doctor, of an experienced human being, to make sense of the whole context. We have the innate ability to detect nuance and subtext. AI struggles with layers of meaning, sarcasm, and cultural context in human communication. So, if you are negotiating a business deal, for example, and you're sitting across the table with someone, you would listen to the words, but as a human being, you are able to read the unspoken. For example, if you're trying to close a deal, you can actually sense hesitation in your counterparty or even the body language, something that artificial intelligence, from where I sit, lacks the intuition or capacity for. And then, as human beings, we have the capacity for genuine empathy. I see people saying AI has developed capacity for empathy. I don't think AI has capacity for empathy. What AI does, AI stimulates empathy in language. And those are two different things from how, as human beings, we express empathy. AI will stimulate empathy in language, but it does not feel human emotions. AI does not understand human emotions beyond the data that is used to train it. Okay. A therapist, those who work in the counseling field, or even a HR manager, can provide comfort during personal hardships in a way that an AI-driven chatbot can't. And these are just the realities of how complex and most of the time we try and write down or try to diminish the power of the human advantage, but yet the power of the human advantage, especially in this era, is quite a powerful force. Then the other thing that AI cannot replicate is your resilience and adaptability. AI relies on historical data, how it's programmed, how it's trained, data sets, and so on and so forth. But as human beings, we can navigate unpredictable crises with creativity and resilience. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, for example, guys who are running startups who pivot during an economic downturn or when the numbers are not making sense, in order to find innovative solutions. That is something that I don't think AI models could anticipate. They can anticipate to a certain extent, depending on the data set that runs them. But there's an extra layer of anticipation that AI cannot do better than human beings. Then we've got our own personal narratives and unique problem solving approach. AI does not have a personal life experience that shapes its perspective. Our cultures, our backgrounds, and our story inform how we approach challenges. If, for example, you're writing a film and you come from a specific cultural background that brings unique storytelling voice, that either no data set exists for or an AI generated script cannot do, then that is something that artificial intelligence cannot replicate. So there's normally the common narrative that artificial intelligence is here to replace us. But I think if we approached the whole conversation about artificial intelligence being here to empower us and to enhance our unique capabilities, then we would make sense of where we are going. And I think to thrive in an AI driven world, it's important to integrate AI in ways that complement what we already are. We almost like keep having an abstract conversation about AI, yet AI must work to complement the people we already are. Okay. So how can we work with AI to complement what we already are? I think the first easy point would be to look at the things we do, be it at work, be it with our own personal workflows, and think about how we can integrate AI in places that it creates most value. For example, sit out, reflect, take time to analyze your current workflow, identify where AI can save you time, reduce tasks that you do repeatedly so that you improve your productivity. And a lot of people are already doing this. For example, those guys who are developing content for brands, there's a lot of AI used there, and it's actually freeing a lot of people's time to engage in higher strategic value kind of work. And then the other thing which is also important at this time is everyone should strive to develop good prompt engineering skills that are specific to our areas of expertise. If you're a banker, if you're a journalist, if you're an academician in a certain domain, it is good to learn to craft the best prompts for AI tools that will generate the most relevant domain specific results. AI is a tool. You feed it garbage, it gives you garbage. You use prompts properly, you get the right kind of answers. A legal professional can generate prompts that help AI generate contract clauses tailored to specific jurisdictions and industries. And then those particular clauses or contracts can be defined by an expert. That means if you're a lawyer, for example, and you do not have excellent or good prompt engineering skills, then AI would be a tedious tool for you because it will not generate the kind of precise information that you'd want to use to template a contract so that you can now review it through the human lens so as to have your customer review it and probably sign it. Yeah. So the other thing that we must do is AI provides multiple outputs quickly, but your expertise adds value by curating and refining these options. Yeah. If, for example, you're a designer, AI tools has multiple of layouts. If you're designing, for example, a company brochure, and you have all these templates, you have all this data at your disposal, then the question should be, what is the value that your trained eye brings to that particular context so that you select the best design and refine that design to meet your client's needs and brand aesthetics. Yeah? And I think also we have something that most of us tend to resist. A lot of us tend to think that using AI to produce things is a bad thing in itself. But I think if we were to use AI and then use it to expand our creative options, then apply our own distinctive perspective, then we become more productive. AI can help you generate more creative possibilities, offering us more ideas that we may not even have considered. But ultimately, your human perspective is what shapes which idea works best. For example, again, in design, if you're working in advertising, AI can suggest various concepts, images, ad copy. For example, if you're designing a billboard for a company, it's very easy now to generate a whole marketing concept using AI. But it is your own understanding that you will not obtain from a machine that gives you the deep understanding of who your target audience is and the brand voice that you would select that resonates very well when the final message is chosen. Then I think the other thing is to create feedback loops where your expertise improves the output of AI over time. Remember, is a machine undergoing constant training. You feed it with data, it uses that data to train itself, and so on and so forth. So when you interact with AI and refine its output, the tool will be more better to get you where you want to be. And then I think also when you do that, you also tend to refine domain specific input. Yeah. For example, a data scientist feeding insights into an AI model will help the system learn more how to refine predictions, analysis specific to a particular industry, for example. I think the other thing is, and a lot of people are doing this, having hybrid processes that leverage both AI efficiency and human insight. Yeah. For example, if you're running a project, AI can assist you with scheduling and tracking, but your strategic thinking will steer the project towards its ultimate objectives. Then the other thing that I think is important as professionals that we should do is to document your AI enhancement processes that deliver superior results. For example, keep a track on how AI enhanced workflows improve outcomes. Yeah. By documenting these processes, you can showcase your efficiency gains and better results to clients or management. For example, if you found a better way of using artificial intelligence to solve a certain problem, I think sometimes it's good to document that and share it because that is where value creation is. You're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to increase efficiency. At the same time, you're applying your own human intuition so that you come up with a 360 solution that can be of value to customers or your stakeholders. For example, if you're running you're a marketing professional and can track how AI generated content helps meet certain key performance indices or key performance objectives, allowing that particular set of data to demonstrate a certain return on investment, then it is good to document that and share that with your client. It propels the productivity conversation further, and also helps customers adopt solutions and tools that allow them to become better at whatever they're doing. The other thing I think, and this is important, that we must start positioning ourselves as artificial intelligence augmented professionals rather than competing with artificial intelligence. I see a lot of people, especially on LinkedIn, complaining about AI generated content, AI generated replies. And of course, there's a justification to such complaints, some of them, especially in how people apply AI. Um, but be that as it may, I think it is also folly to compete with that artificial intelligence. I think our role is to embrace AI and become collaborators, to position ourselves as leaders in our fields who harness AI to amplify the things we already are, rather than someone who is threatened by artificial intelligence and automation. For example, instead of seeing AI as competition, a creative mind could present themselves as a strategic AI augmented leader who pushes boundaries of creativity through technology. Remember, the continuing conversation is about using AI, increasing our productivity, and then applying human judgment as to what is best in certain circumstances. Um, the other thing, and this is going to be difficult for a lot of us, which is the practice of articulating value that you bring beyond what AI provides alone. And you see it all the time here on LinkedIn. You go to ChatGPT, you prompt, you get the raw text, post it on your timeline. A third party reading or a lot of human minds interacting with that text tell you that there are nuances that could have been refined, and that is probably something that AI probably was not able to do, and the person posting needed to have done the prompting, then taken the output, and then applied the human strength and the human intelligence. Yeah. The ability to explain our expertise, our human perspective, and personal touch will completely enhance AI generated output. For example, we as consultants, as trainers, we may use AI, but the ability to explain our deep industry knowledge, our relationship building skills, can help refine AI driven solutions to fit specific client needs. Yeah. So AI is a tool to augment our unique capabilities. AI is not replacing us. The future of professional work lies in how efficiently we combine human insight, creativity, and judgment with artificial intelligence. Um, and then as we progress forward as professionals, the AI is going to become like a standard tool in many aspects of our lives. But as I've said before, there are certain human capabilities that simply cannot be replicated by artificial intelligence at this point. And these are the qualities that we must continue nurturing so that we set ourselves apart in our respective workplaces, in our organizations, and in the things that we do that bring value to society. And I think some of the algorithm resistant skills would include things like the ability to have complex negotiation and conflict resolution skills. I've already given you an example, for example, in diplomacy, in politics. AI can produce certain data sets and do certain things, but I think you need that human touch, the element of trust, the element of empathy to be able to enter into complex negotiations and to resolve conflict quicker and efficiently. As I said, AI can analyze data, but humans excel in real-time negotiation and conflict resolution, and we're able to also adapt to shifting emotions, while also applying ourselves with a lot of emotional intelligence. Remember, there's the argument about artificial intelligence being emotionally intelligent, but I think I would want to say that artificial intelligence is emotionally intelligent through the use of data, and our human intelligence dramatically is not of that form. Then there's the element of and the idea that we must always sharpen our strategic thinking with quantifiable human and organizational factors. Okay. AI analyzes data, but strategic decisions always rely on interpreting the unquantifiable factors, the issues at the edge, our company cultures, our personal dynamics, the market sentiments that cannot be born of data. And these are the things that when you combine that with data, then you end up getting long-term success. For example, if you're a chief executive considering merging your company with another, yeah, and you've combined the team has combined, done work on the numbers, the spreadsheets exist, artificial intelligence has produced certain data points to accelerate the work of the transaction advisors. But there are questions, for example, about organizational fit that probably you cannot use artificial intelligence to establish. You require the deep instinct born of emotions and other factors. Employee morale in the company that you want to acquire. How loyal are customers? You might have all this data about customer loyalty, but does that data tell you the real picture from a human perspective? And these are factors that you cannot use data and machines alone. I'm not saying that there are elements that you can pick, nuances that you can pick from data, but you also need the element of human intuition to make proper judgment. Then we've got the idea about creative problem solving in ambiguous situations. For example, in complex, ill-defined situations with incomplete data, humans can creatively generate solutions based on experience, intuition, and lateral thinking. So that is an area, again, we need to sharpen our minds when you're confronted with an ambiguous situations where, for example, data does not exist. Then you've got to rely on your intuition, your history, your experience, your lived experience to come up with the solution. The other thing that chatbots and all these agents will not do is to express empathetic leadership and authentic connection. AI can simulate empathy, but only humans can build genuine empathy and trust-based relationships and inspire others through deep emotional connection and shared purpose. Yeah. So these are what we would call algorithm resistant skills, and most of them are born of the how our soft skill as our soft skills as human beings combine to position human intelligence is in a unique way in collaboration in situations where human intelligence has to collaborate with artificial intelligence. Then we've got also the issue of sharpening our depth of cross-cultural communication and navigating unspoken norms. I've said before, you could be in a room with people and these people would be speaking and machines would have churned out the numbers and so on and so forth. But as human beings, we are unique in recognizing and respecting cultural nuances that guide successful communication. AI does not fully grasp the complexity of the cultural context and unspoken social norms. For example, in diplomacy, if you're negotiating an international trade deal, you have the data, trade imbalances, and so on and so forth. but you must also negotiate subtle cultural negativities, sensitivities, sorry. You must understand the body language of your counterpart. You must uh, appreciate the unwritten norms that AI might not uh, interpret. Again, the issue of ethical decision making in competing valid principles. AI relies again on data. This is something I have to insist over and over again. But ethical decision making often involves balancing competing context dependent principles. A medical ethicist may make end of life decisions. A medical ethicist making end of life decisions may consider not just the clinical data, but the emotional, family context, and the cultural context that shape that particular decision, which AI cannot do. What am I trying to say? For example, if you've got a cancer patient and all medical data tells us that the cancer patient is probably at the end of their life and probably they're on life support and you need to switch off the machine. If you run the medical data on a machine, the medical data will probably tell you yes, it's time to do what must be done. But again, as human beings, then how must we undertake to do that which must be done? There must be a method that can only be supplied and interrogated using the human mind. And then, as you have said before, there is the issue where everybody can generate content. Everybody can fill their spaces with content, manipulate images, and so on and so forth. The existing and the continuing challenge is to stand out by being authentically ourselves and authenticity for our own situations, authenticity for organizations we work for, authenticity for the brands we push. Because again, I would go back to the example that I gave earlier about product description. I can go and have this same, I can go to chat GPT and I would want to describe a product, probably a soap. We'll probably come up with the same kind of words. The only thing that will differentiate us is how authentic we are in the context where we're operating. And I think one of the ways we can do that is to identify and articulate the unique lenses through which we view our professions and our world, so that we are not just like others, but we are expressing a unique voice that is only unique to us in the way we approach our work. What is this perspective that makes our content stand out from others who are probably doing the same thing as ourselves? And then I think sharing our lived experience, sharing lessons from our professional journeys that others can't claim. For example, if you're involved in turning around a business, turning around a company, those are things that only you can do, so that it is very difficult for somebody to claim that particular lived experience. And those are things that we should take advantage of. And then the idea that we must develop intellectual positions that reflect our authentic values and beliefs, so that we must stand firm in the things we believe in, even if they challenge the status quo, because that again creates authenticity, which resonates with others who share or are looking for similar perspectives. Then we must be able to connect disparate ideas from our diverse experiences. How does A, B, C feed into D? The ability to draw connections between different fields and experiences that make us become considered thought leaders. How do we find patterns across work, hobbies, and life that gives us distinct perspectives? For example, if you're a marketer with a passion for psychology, you might create content linking consumer behavior to psychological principles and offer new insights into how probably audiences engage with brands. Then the ability to incorporate cultural and community contexts that inform our perspective. Our and I think we don't do this a lot, but our cultural backgrounds and communities are a part that shape how we see the world and approach professional challenges. And I think incorporating that context into our content, into how we communicate, will make us richer and more relatable. For example, if you're a leader from a multicultural background, for example, you might be able to address how cultural differences in a global team can be leveraged to improve creativity and innovation. And I think the other thing is telling stories that only you can tell authentically about professional challenges, your personal journey that belongs to you, your personal journey that others cannot replicate. Um, then to train our minds to express informed opinions rather than just generalized conventional wisdom. Don't just repeat what others are saying. You go to a prompt, you load the information, and then disseminate that information. Provide your informed perspective backed by research and experience. Thoughtful, nuanced opinions attract engagement. For example, if you are a coach and you're writing about leadership styles, and I think this is something a lot of us, including myself, are guilty about. Beyond just offering advice, I think we need to offer a nuanced take on how, for example, emotional intelligence affects team dynamics and so on and so forth. And then the ability to develop distinctive frameworks based on professional experiences. And I think a lot of us don't do this, but I think with AI and the way the world is structured now, it's important to use your own lived experience to develop distinctive frameworks and then derive value out of them. For example, a marketer with years of experience may develop a proprietary model for customer acquisition that blends behavioral science and data-driven insights. And then you need to create content that combines personal narrative with professional insight. Authenticity comes from combining your personal experiences with professional insights. If, for example, you're a leader in the healthcare sector, you might share your own experience about how the healthcare system, that's a lived experience, has shaped your views on patient-centered care, blending your own personal story with, with expert advice, and then building a recognizable communication style that reflects your personality, among other things. And then there's also the issue of taking principled stands on contested issues in your field. Stand firm on difficult issues that matter to you by taking a clear stance. You demonstrate integrity and thought leadership, which will attract like-minded individuals. Don't just move with the flow, interrogate the flow, because once we start pulling data out of AI tools, it's important to interrogate such data. And if there are contested issues around such data, then take a stand. And that is, I think that is an important perspective. As professionals, our most valuable resource is time. And AI brings efficiency such that it moves us to focus on high value tasks. And as we focus on high value tasks, we leverage both human potential and artificial intelligence. And then if we are to leverage AI so that we are left to focus on high value tasks, how then do we go about that so that we also become exceedingly productive? I think, as I've said before, one of the first things that everybody must do is to audit our current workload to identify what is routine and what is standard, and then we apply AI to automate where possible. Then we need to develop AI workflows for fast drafts, data processing, and standard analysis. Uh, we should use AI to handle initial drafts. For example, if you're drafting a contract, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Apply AI to generate a fast draft, organize raw data, and then perform. Then with time, you refine that particular document or that particular set of data so that it's useful to the people or to your stakeholders. This saves time. Why this will save time while maintaining a high output quality. Yeah. And I think this is something already being done by those who are running content for organizations. They most of them now are using AI first to generate initial drafts for social media, email marketing campaigns, and so on and so forth. And then they use the human intuition to refine them. And then the other thing, especially for organizations, is to create templates and systems that handle predictable aspects of our work. For example, I go again into the example of agreements and contracts. We need to build templates and systems for processes that have a predictive structure. Templates will allow us to quickly produce consistent work with minimal effort. So if you're running a project, for example, you could create template documents for project planning, risk assessment, or status reports, and then letting AI autofill standard information. And I think the other thing which is important and which organizations must also do is to build organizations and individuals is to build prompt libraries for recurring content and analytical needs. We need to develop a set of tailored prompts that can be used for recurring content creation, analysis, brainstorming, and this will allow us to consistently again produce quality work. If, for example, you are a content writer, you might want to create a library of prompts that to generate blog topics, social media posts, and other copy, speeding up content creation and reducing decision fatigue. Um, and I think this is important. It's a common sense thing that we should use AI for comprehensive research synthesis before we apply our judgment. Let AI handle research synthesis by compiling data from various sources and offering you insights. Once AI organizes the information, apply your expertise and judgment to extract the most relevant point. Um, if you're a strategist, for example, you might use AI to pull together market trends and competitor data, then apply your judgment to identify the most actionable insight. Um, the other thing is to automate correspondence and follow up that doesn't require personalization. For example, routine emails, reminders, or follow up tasks that don't require a personalized touch, so that you focus on other tasks that require your specific expertise. The other thing is, for example, delegating meeting summaries and action item tracking to AI assistants. For example, if you, I'll give an example of a board meeting, routine board meetings or routine strategy meetings, where action items are taken and resolutions are done. I think we can use AI assistant to help us track implementation so that we focus on the next steps. The other thing is that we can use AI to organize and extract insights from our own knowledge base. We already have a lot of data sitting in our computers, in our workplaces. And I think AI can extract valuable insight from our own research notes, past projects, enabling us to gain valuable insights when needed. For example, if you're running a consultancy firm, you could use AI data to categorize and retrieve key findings from past client projects to inform you about how to execute in the future. And doing so, you'll save time on how you mine data for your projects. The other thing is to develop systems that handle variation within established parameters. While AI can handle standard tasks, you can develop systems to handle variations in these tasks by defining clear parameters. For example, I'll give you an example from the supply chain management side. If if you could create a system that adjusts inventory thresholds based on seasonality, but AI can make those adjustments within parameters set by the user, so that the AI does not operate on its own, but AI is moderated in a way by human creativity and intelligence. And I think the other thing is it's just having decision trees for predictable scenarios that AI can execute. We've seen that in the deployment of agents, AI agents in places like in doing things like customer service, or in helping HR professionals deal with common employee queries about benefits, so that if there's a query, the AI handles that, and then if there's need for intervention, then the HR leader or manager can always interject. And then the other important thing is to have quality control processes for AI generated content. Remember, AI is not accurate, and sometimes AI depends on the data it's been trained on, and sometimes that data is not accurate, not up to date. So again, having a quality control processes to verify accuracy, I think would be necessary. And then in the world, we've been told that our differences sometimes make us weird, but I think in the age of AI, it's important that we embrace our little unique, our little pointers of uniqueness. Identify unusual combination of skills and experiences in your background. For example, reflect on the skills and experiences you've accumulated that might not seem conventional, but when combined, they create a distinctive value proposition. For example, you could be a marketing expert with a background in anthropology, and then you can use that particular distinctive experience to bring insightful cultural perspective on how, for example, consumers behave. Then the other thing is to explore how your non-traditional path offers fresh perspectives. For example, your journey might not have followed the typical career trajectory, but that's precisely what makes your perspective unique. Leverage this non-traditional path to offer fresh, out-of-the-box solution. For example, if you could be you're someone who probably began your career in music and then pivoted into that data analytics and can see patterns in data from a creative and an artistic angle. That again can help you in offering innovative solutions to business problems if well applied. Connecting your specialized knowledge to broader professional challenges. Your specialized knowledge, even in niche areas, can be connected to broader challenges in your field, allowing you to provide unique insights. For example, if you're a tech expert in machine learning, that expertise can actually solve problems in areas like healthcare, retail, finance, where adoption is growing at a faster pace. If you are a psychologist, if you're a lawyer, for example, and you are deep into dispute resolution, you could apply your legal knowledge with psychology to understand why disputes arise in the first place and how those disputes could be solved if certain psychological parameters would be considered. Then the other thing is find applications for your niche interests within your professional domain. Niche passions or interests can be valuable within your professional work. Identify how these interests can enhance your contributions in meaningful ways. For example, if you're a hobbyist in, sustainable agriculture, how can you, when you go back to the office, how can you integrate your eco-friendly practices back where you come from into the corporate strategy proper to help your business or the organization you work for pivot towards green operations. Okay. And then the other thing is to develop methodologies that reflect your unique approach to problems. we tend to have, and this arises out of how we are trained. For example, if you go to business school, the theory, the frameworks, and so on and so forth would normally be the same across. But you can think through and have your own methodologies and processes that reflect the way you approach challenges. And in that process, you make your problem solving style an asset. Um, it's a difficult thing to do, but I think with AI and in the quest for our uniqueness, I think it's something that more and more professionals should reflect about. Create your own terminology or frameworks that capture your distinctive thinking. How do you think? How do you see things? Develop new frameworks, terminologies, or models based on your own lived experience. Um, I would give you an example, and this is an example from two fields that might never be connected. If you're a HR professional, for example, with a background in theater, you might create a framework for leadership development based on improvisational improvisational skills, encouraging creativity in leadership. You're trying to apply the things you've learned around theater to use those particular learnings and experiences to develop a leadership skill in the corporate, to develop leaders and a leadership program in the corporate setting. And then the other important thing is to identify industries and contexts where your unusual background adds value. Pinpoint industries, situations where your unusual combination of skills, particularly where your combination of skills is particularly valuable, and position yourself as a thought leader in that space. For example, if you're a former artist working in architecture, you might offer unique perspectives on design by merging artistic creativity with architectural functionality, and I think a good number of architects are also artists, and I think that is something that is in practice for quite some time, and you tend to see rather than just seeing a raw architect that can do buildings and develop blueprints, you also see someone who has the capacity to think art, to think creativity, and to think beyond form and function. And I think those are the things that actually make us unique. If you look at such an architect and an architect who just practices their craft, there's an extra added value just beyond creating buildings. And I think the other thing that is important is to document how our unconventional approach produce valuable results. If you're doing certain things in an unconventional way, document that process so that people use that as case studies, and you also use that yourself to demonstrate the value you bring as a unique individual. Um, and I think also the other important thing is to build a personal brand around what makes us delightfully different. Don't try and be another person, be who you are. Build a brand that showcases your quirkiness as your core strength rather than that being a liability. For example, you could have an engineer who has a passion for storytelling, and they can use that narrative technique to communicate complex technical issues in a more engaging way rather than just being a raw engineer with technical knowledge. And then the other thing which is important also is to find practical applications for your cross-disciplinary knowledge that you possess. As we've said before, AI is flattening our access to knowledge, and we are now having access to knowledge that you would not have access to if it was not for AI. So how then do we apply this knowledge that we've learned from across different disciplinaries into the projects and the things we do on a daily basis? Um, I think the other thing is also to just celebrate the aspects of our work that AI will never think to do. recognize the creative, emotional, and human-centric aspects of our work that AI cannot replicate, and use those as a point of our differentiation. For example, if you're a customer service agent or manager who has mastered the art of empathy and communication, you can use that to connect to customers in a way that AI bots would never do in creating more personalized experiences. Of course, there's the limitations about how far a group of human beings can replicate themselves, but I think in some certain unique circumstances, that could be an important, unique selling point. And then the other key is having an eye to identify problems that people overlook due to conventional thinking. We've always done it like this. And that requires the spirit and the courage to challenge conventional wisdom, look at problems that others overlook, and find innovative solutions that others might dismiss. For example, I would now go to finance. If you're a finance professional, uh, and you have some idea about how to combine finance and social work, you might identify how corporate practices are affecting employee mental health, for example, and then offer solutions that benefit both financial performance and employee well-being. So that your weaknesses, whether they are unconventional skills or diverse experiences or niche interests, become assets that when harnessed correctly, can set you apart in this age of artificial intelligence. But as we continue to discuss, I think there's a paradox with that we must confront with artificial intelligence. Um, Artificial intelligence makes professional competence accessible to everyone. So if professional competence is accessible to everyone, then what is then unique about us? True excellence is increasingly depending on human qualities. You can do anything with AI, you can be professionally competent with AI, but true excellence will require qualities like creativity, empathy, intuition, and the ability to adapt to complex situations. These qualities elevate your work in ways that AI cannot replicate. Yeah. Many professionals try to compete with AI when they should be complementing it. Instead of viewing AI as a competitor, professionals should learn to work alongside it, augmenting their capabilities so that AI handles routine, repetitive tasks, leaving you with more time to focus on strategic thinking, creativity, and leadership. The content writer might use AI to draft articles, but still rely on the expertise to fine tune the tone, the structure, and the insight. I think that's something that we have discussed is the most basic example that I can give. And then because we are becoming more similar with each other and professional competence accessible to everyone, there's a danger and the temptation to follow AI best practices without challenging them. And that would lead to conformity. And there's a danger there that we could lose innovation due to the lack of creativity. So that's something that we must think about. And then your most irreplaceable value, as I've discussed, comes from what you can only do, your personal insights, your cultural knowledge, your personal intuition, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And I think as we move forward, any professional development program requires both fluency in AI and human distinctiveness. I think the idea that AI is here to take over and to become the sole tool for work is misleading if we also don't tell professionals and those we develop that critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and even leadership, those are the things that will allow us to maintain a competitive edge and our uniqueness in the age of AI. Um, then there's the paradox of job security. You must be identifiably irreplaceable, not just irreplaceable, but identifiably irreplaceable. You should be doing things that AI cannot replicate. Professionals need to find that their unique edge and demonstrate how their distinctive capabilities add value in ways that AI cannot. For example, if you're a consultant who combines deep industry knowledge with personal intuition and relationship building, you will always be replaceable, as these qualities, especially intuition and relationship building, cannot be replicated by AI. Remember, the skill gap is narrowing while the imagination gap is widening. AI is taking over all the tasks, all the routine tasks, not all of them, all the routine tasks. And many of the skills we once thought were essential are now becoming automated. The real gap lies in imagination, the ability to think creatively, to innovate, and to approach problems from new angles. Um, the other thing that I think is a good and important talking point is algorithm resistant value often comes from combining seemingly unrelated domains. AI excels at processing known patterns, but true value comes from combining insights from seemingly unrelated fields. So professionals who connect disparate domains can offer true unique perspectives that AI cannot replicate. Um, and I think the most successful professionals will be those who use AI differently, not just better. Yeah. So that they use AI to do tasks more efficiently, but they also use it in innovative ways that enhance their work in new and creative directions. I think it's about finding unique ways to leverage AI capabilities to augment human skills. So, how do we measure how we are differentiated in terms of AI and being human beings? So you could have very high AI skills and very high and very and your distinction in terms of your human creativity is also very high. That means you'd be transformative and maximum professional value through and then you maximize value through distinctive AI enhancement. So we also have people who have very high human distinction, very high human distinctive values, but they're also very low on AI in terms of skilling. They could be distinctive, yes, but increasingly as we build on AI and as we deploy AI, they would become increasingly inefficient. Then we have got people whose human capacity is not very distinctive. Their human distinction is low, but their AI skill is high, and we are getting a lot of into that space where a lot of incompetent people with very weak human skills are now using AI aimlessly to produce work. They are technically proficient, but they're very replaceable. And then you have people with very low human distinction and also very low AI skill. They are undifferentiated and at a disadvantage at this point going forward. So you need to think about how to reinvent yourself, how to create that unique voice that allows you to still grow and do things and high value work, even as we continue adopting AI. There are several questions that I've listed there that you probably need to think about, to reflect on as you think about how to adopt AI in your own personal life and also in your own professional workflows. And I think these questions are important. I will not go through all of them. You can go through them in your own spare time. For example, what professional opinions do you hold that go against conventional wisdom? Challenging conventional wisdom in your industry by embracing non-mainstream views. I'm not meaning that you become obsessed with things that don't work, but you have opinions that come from a unique combination of experiences or an inclination to think differently, so that you're not suffering the disease of sameness. Those are some of the questions that you need to think about. The other question that you need to think about is what skills have you developed that aren't on a typical resume in your field? Are you unique in that aspect? What if you really want to know what kind of value you bring? For example, if you're working with your clients and colleagues, they would always tell you, this in this area, this guy is good, and I think we need him there. So, what value do you bring most when you're working with your clients and your colleagues? In terms of the aspects of your work, what would be the hardest to create for a training data set? What is it about the work you're doing that cannot be that AI cannot be trained for? So you need to reflect on those questions as you move ahead. And I think also as we think about being unique and being differentiated, you need to adopt some ongoing practices that I propose. For example, you need to just sit down with yourself and have regular differentiation audits of your work and your role. How are you different from everyone? Are you still focusing on your unique strengths? What are the new opportunities to innovate or to approach challenges differently? Um, you need to develop a personal knowledge management system. In the past, we spoke about personal management. We talk about knowledge management systems for organizations. You need to organize the knowledge, experience, and insights you've accumulated throughout your career. This can be in the form of a digital knowledge base, a journal, content repository that stores your valuable perspectives that you've gained. And I would say this because the thing we call a CV at some point will expire, and we'll need to demonstrate our capacity through our own personal knowledge and experiences. So I think it's important that we do that. If you engage in a project, if you do very high value work, then it's good that you have that documented and stored somewhere. Um, Talk to people. Let your colleagues tell you about your distinctive value, your mentors, your client. What is this that is unique about you? They will tell you, and then use that to try and frame a brand narrative around yourself. You could keep a distinction diary to document where your approach is different. You could log instances where your approach to things diverges from the norm. This can help you track and refine what makes you stand out, as well as identify patterns in how your uniqueness can lead you to success. For example, if you're a project manager, you could document moments where your unconventional problem solving methods led to successful outcomes. And then I think also the other thing as we move forward is to avoid echo chambers and to join communities that value and nurture professional individualism, so that you join rooms where people value competing or opposing ideas. Seek out communities, networks, professional groups that value and nurture individualistic thinking. Engage with people who appreciate diversity in perspectives and approaches, so that they help you stay connected with those who value your uniqueness, among other things. Yeah. So the other thing is, which is important, you should find mentors that have carved a niche for themselves. Mentors who are unique in certain aspects. Mentors who challenge you to embrace your individuality. Um, for example, if you have access to a senior leader who has remained innovative and distinctive in their field, and they can offer you advice how to handle professional pressures while staying true to your own approach. Create a space for regular creative exploration beyond immediate demands. Set aside some dedicated time for creative exploration that allows you to reflect on who you are, where you're going, what's happening, what's new, and so on and so forth. The other thing that we must now develop is the ability to explain complex ideas in an authentic voice. AI can extract ideas and explain them in a certain way, but then how do you, as a person, inject an element of uniqueness by explaining those complex ideas in your own complex and in your own authentic voice? And I think it's good to regularly practice explaining complex ideas, concepts, or strategies in your voice. In just the manner in which you uniquely express yourself. This practice will reinforce your distinct communication style and help others see your own perspective clearly. And then I think you need to continually refine how you collaborate with AI, learn new tools, keep abreast with what is happening in your field, which key AI tools and methods are disrupting your industry. Where is the world going in terms of AI innovation? Where does that leave you? How does that crash your standing as a brand, as a person, from an experience perspective, from a positional perspective, for example, if you work in an organization, those are things that you need to constantly reflect on. Then you need to build relationship with people and surround yourself with people, whether colleagues, clients, or industry peers who appreciate your distinctive contribution and the value you bring to the table. Those relationships not only help you sustain your uniqueness, but also encourage you to keep staying unique and also to explore new avenues for expressing that particular uniqueness. So I think in conclusion, we're in a world which is algorithmic, a lot of programming, a lot of prompting, a lot of microwave data, microwave served quickly. I mean, data served in a way, in the manner you warm food in your microwave. And I think the most valuable professional asset is the way your mind works differently from others. Your future is not about how you perform standardized work. That can now be performed by machines. So it's not a competition how you can perform routine work better than others. But I think the key thing is about how you contribute what only you can bring to the table from your own lived experiences, perspectives, capabilities, and other nuances that are not found in machines. So I think, again, we need to remember that machines excel at programming data, performing repetitive tasks, and optimizing us for efficiency. However, machines will always struggle with unpredictable human factors and creative problem solving. So this is where our uniqueness will always come into play. And I think the future belongs to people who can make unique contributions, people who can innovate, and people who can lead based on some certain individual perspective, which makes them irreplaceable in the future. So I think as professionals, as people who want to do work and to produce meaningful work, we should not focus on competing with AI in areas where it can easily outperform us. Instead, we must always focus and question what is it that we do best that only we can do best. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I think back to the original point, and the question is, what is it that makes you unique? What is it that makes you different from the person next to you? Thank you very much for listening.